Hello. Hi. Happy Friday. It is August 21st, 2026. Later live. Um I'm here to cover Hayden Panettiere's book and then hopefully move on to Lindsay Clancy. Yes, please hit the like button on the way in. Hello. Um so I did buy the ebook. I ordered the hardcover as well, but I figured that we could just do the ebook. Hopefully it works. If not, we'll have to move on to the hard copy. But I wanted to read this book with you guys. We've read another book before. We actually read the Brian Koberger book, James Patterson. We read that, and it was a lot of fun. So I figured we could do that with this book since there's a lot going on with the Hayden case. We have been covering RIP, Hayden Panettiere. I've always really liked her actually. She's just in that group with she's a little bit younger, but the Britneys of the world, Christina Aguilera, Amanda Bynes, Selena Gomez, all of those kinds. So it's very sad what's happening. Her death investigation, she obviously passed. So I figured we should get into the book. It's split up into parts. We're going to do part one. It's rather long, so I'm assuming we'll get through a couple of chapters. I'm gonna pause as I go through because I'm going to clip these to with no well, I'm gonna try to reduce the commentary as I'm reading, but then we can talk about it so I can clip um these readings because I think people would want to hear them. And if you don't want to buy the book, then you can listen here with us. Hello, Jen. Hello, Badass Dodgers, Debbie, Michelle, Jerry. I hope you guys have had a great day. J. Lou Austin and Justin came in here saying something crazy. Okay, so it was working for me fine earlier. I think it'll be fine now to um bring it up. It's not a very long book. I think it's 200, almost 300 pages, if I'm not mistaken. That's easy peasy. We read through that probably in the transcripts that we do. Also, I wanted to ask you guys. I wanted to reread Mackenzie Shirla text messages. Let me know if that is something you are willing to do, or we can re-listen to other ones. We're going to be doing a members only this weekend too. I've been behind, but I do have members only planned. So, is this story time? Yes, it is story time. Hey, Kayla, Anthony. I saw her when I worked at Vanderbilt in Nashville. She was filming for a scene for Nashville, and I remember being so excited to see her. Thank you, Melly. You do a great job. Thank you, Stephanie. That's really awesome. Yeah, I really like her. I think she's super talented and she's beautiful. And I'm sad about what happened. We've already talked about it in other lives, so I won't go into it now, but I think that people who were around her should be responsible if they were partaking in this, because clearly she has been struggling with addiction. And I also think it was a great time to, we've done a live where we talk about Lindsay and Hayden at the same time, because Hayden also went through Lindsay and Hayden, sorry, Lindsay Clancy. They both struggled with postpartum depression and psychosis. And well, I don't know about Hayden having a psychosis, but we don't really know a lot of that background. But she's been really open about it. And it really affected her. It led her down to start alcoholism. Now I don't know, she was drinking before and it just got worse, or if it kind of just started with the postpartum. So it's very sad what happened, but yeah, let's get started. Yeah. Yeah, you can. I love that you're doing a reading on her book. Yeah, I really wanted to start it earlier during the day or during the week. But we've been busy with Lindsay, and then I have like my family and stuff. So More awareness must happen. Yeah, we have a Lindsay live planned after this to get caught up. And then tomorrow I want to do like a discussion about Lindsay and I want it to get really personal. So I might make it a members only. I don't know. Depends. But also, I wanted to go through Kenzie stuff again. You guys know I'm obsessed with the Kenzie case. We'll always be obsessed. Okay, so let's start. I have to refresh sometimes with this ebook. So it's the prologue. Let's get started. Actually, let me pull up something that I wanted to check on the book. Oh, so sad. Okay, yeah, it's like 300 pages. We're not going to read them all today. I probably will do 3 parts, maybe more. But like I said, I am going to clip them. So if I take little pauses throughout the live, don't worry. I probably am crying because of the book, but also going to clip. um She talks about the abuse she experienced with Brian Hickerson, her on and off boyfriend too, who's in the spotlight. So I really am looking forward to hearing what she has to say in the book. Okay, the prologue says, "It's almost spring in New York, just a few days after we set our clocks ahead. I grew up here, but after nearly 20 years living elsewhere, I somehow forgot how the light creeps in and the ground softens, readying itself for flowers to come up. I've been reminded that when the trees start to blossom, winter's grayness fades away as a splash of color fill in the horizon. When the clouds rise high and blue skies break through, this part of the world doesn't feel so heavy. Whatever happened before when we hunkered down in the cold or sought refuge inside doesn't matter. Winter is practically over. It's time to renew, regrow, and start life fresh. I've come back to my hometown in Rockland County, just north of New York City, to live with my dad and stepmom for a few months. I didn't expect to stay as long as I have, but after a few hard years, I needed to give my mind, body, and soul some rest. I've settled into that relaxation, but I've also felt awake, alive, and hungry to challenge myself again. I've hiked, traveled to see friends, and golfed with my dad. I love to read fantasy and science fiction, and I've spent entire days reading about dragons and vampires and strange beings from other dimension. I've taken long walks past my childhood home, remembering the little girl who did cartwheels in the backyard and the teenager who once threw a party when her parents were out and then forced all the guests to hide in the closet when they came home early. One of my childhood best friends owned peacocks, and some are still wandering through the neighborhood, scattering green and blue feathers as they pass. Dorothy was right. There is no place like home. And as winter turns to spring, I'm settling into the comfort I'm finding here. I'm grateful for the time I've had with my dad. We've we've always managed to find humor in everyday moments, and as we've talked through my childhood memories and our family stories, we've laughed till our sides hurt. But I'd be lying if I said I haven't shed tears. One of the main reasons is because my dad's house is filled with happy, smiling pictures of my little brother Jansen, who we lost in February 19th of 2023. Jansen excelled at everything he put his mind to, but he was uniquely gifted artist. And dad's hung his paintings on almost every wall. These reminders of my brother are so vibrant and present that I feel like he might walk into the room at any minute, talking a little too fast and a little too loud, flashing a shit-eating ear-to-ear grin after saying something to annoy me. Jansen's art may still be alive, but he's not. While seeing his life's work breaks my heart all over again, I'm grateful to have something of him to hold on to. While learning to live in a world where he doesn't exist has often brought me to my knees. But he would want me to remember that death and loss are part of life, but they always rebirth you if you let them. Sitting with my brother's spirit in every room of dad's house, I've come to grips with the fact that I spent much of my life coping with some kind of loss, from massive traumas to small hiccups. My mom got me into acting when I was 8 months old, and I haven't stopped since. From a very young age, I lost a chance to have a quote, normal childhood, friends, relationships, and my privacy because instead of fighting it, I leaned into the talent that I was somehow blessed with and that she helped me realize. I've always held myself to a high standard, and mom never let me settle for anything less. Disappointing her was one of my biggest fears. Because of that, I sometimes don't believe in myself as much as I'd like to. Mom and I have had our share of issues, but I'm not going to blame her for my problems. She can be tough, but she's pushed me to be my best. And all the lessons I've learned along the way who have made me believe that moments of good can come from self doubt. Sometimes life has been really hard, but through those difficult times, I've always made the choice to grow. My daughter Kaya has lived with her dad, Valdemir Klitschko, since 2018. Not being under the same roof with her every day has been the most gut wrenching experience of my life. And it's hard to describe the layers of emotion, including sadness, resentment, and anger I've felt because of it. But I know anger springs from hurt. Depression often masks a rage, and grief is a long, complicated journey. I grieve that I'm not the mother I thought I'd be, and definitely not the mother I want to be. Trust me, no one should ever have to raise a child on FaceTime. And although I miss Kaya so much, my heart aches. I know how blessed I am to be her mom. She is the greatest gift of my life, with the best parts of her father and me. And today, I believe I have the opportunity to be a different kind of parent than most. Despite it all, the bond I have with Kaya is an incredible strong. She is talented and wise beyond her years, but she didn't ask to be born into the limelight or my chaos, and she didn't get to choose her parents. I want her to have every choice that I didn't, including the ability to live a private life. So, out of respect for her right to normalcy, my stories of motherhood will be through my eyes only, and I'll keep personal details of her life to a minimum. I also want to make it clear that I don't blame Valdemir for any of my wrongs. I take full responsibility for my part in our relationship and my shortcomings as a mom. He is one of the most courageous people I've ever met and a true hero in so many ways. Time and time again, he's built me when others would have knocked me down. Valdemir, I think that's how you say the name, sorry. You're a wonderful human being and an amazing father to Kaya. And if you read this book, I hope it's with an open heart and that strength and stoicism I've always teased you about. I've always strived to be a positive person, but I grieve all the hours I lost to addiction, my broken relationships, and my loved ones who are no longer here. I also know I'm not alone when I say the fact my family fell apart still stings. I've spent years in treatment trying to make sense of these losses, and I've concluded that the only thing I can change is myself and the person I want to be. If only that was easy. I'm a complex person whose thoughts can feel fractured at times, and discussing my past isn't straightforward or easy. As my friends will tell you, I tend to talk in circles, but I always try to get back to my original point. I never want to stop evolving and changing for the better, and I'll forever be a work in progress. But one thing I know from my 36 years in the public is this: life is a process that evolves day by day, year by year, and like it or not, you are engaged in a cycle of growth until the moment you take your last breath. In any kind of growth, there may be failures, mistakes, grief, and pain. Trees lose their leaves, endure cold winters, then come back majestically the next spring. We're meant to shed our dead skin and the parts of ourselves that don't serve us, and sometimes it's mainly painful. Believe me when I say I have felt this pain. There's no way to share your story with the world, but the last thing I want to be is a downer. I'm an optimist to the core and refused to be defined by my tragedies. So I try to think of these tumultuous moments in my life not as losses, but as life quakes. It's a funny little word for a serious thing, meaning a major change from the internal or external disruption that precipitates personal evolution or rebirth. A life quake has the ability to completely derail you, but it can also be temporary and help you make you stronger if you choose to let it. Life can shake you up and tear you down, but even when you're at your worst, there's hope and you have an opportunity to rebuild. In her book on death and dying, the legendary psychiatrist Elizabeth Kubler-Ross describes the 5 stages of grief: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. I've been through all of these stages, sometimes fast, other times slowly, and often out of order. What Kubler-Ross doesn't propose, though, is a 6 stage of grief described by one of my favorite authors, David Kessler. The stage is meaning, and he writes about it in his best-selling book, Finding Meaning. My traumas have offered me through a sense of humor, some ridiculous stories, prioritizing my health, and a deeper relationship with my parents, pets that I adore, animal rights, and environmental activism that gives me purpose. And now, this book. All the heartaches I have endured have allowed me to come to a place of empathy and understanding for everything my loved ones have come up and against, most importantly, for myself. They've also given me determination. I'm like Dory, the resilient little fish in Finding Nemo, who just keeps swimming, even when she comes face to face with a bunch of sharks. I'm far from perfect, but my life quakes and moments of struggle are little miracles that have helped me grow. Thank you for coming along with me on this journey through all its ups and downs. Hayden, spring of 2025. Hi. Oh, sorry, I haven't been reading the chat while I was reading that. Um, oh yeah, thank you. Hayden Joyce. Melly, you're the best reader I have ever heard in my life. Really? Thank you, Jen. That's really nice. Hi, Anna. Hello, Meow Mix. Hello, Abuelita. Hello, Cree, Jamie, Asin. I don't know who else I missed while I was reading. Angel Eyes, Mo. My son's middle name is Hayden. I love that name. I do. But that was really good, and that was just the beginning of it. Wow. Very sad too. Very sad. Let me just. It's so sad and interesting, right? I'm really glad we decided to read it together because it's a lot. Um, and I try to read the whole time, so sometimes I do need a drink though. I love reading. It's like it's my number one hobby, if anyone didn't know that. I don't know that I'm good at it. You guys say I am, but if I am, that would explain a lot. um, let's get started. Okay, so that was very, very powerful, and that was just the prologue. So I'm sure I'll probably struggle through this book. But at least we're together reading it. Let me see if I want to put a chat because I'm gonna clip it. So oh, I can't wait to hear the rest. Yeah. I'll put chat up in a second. Okay. So part 1, chapter 1. Non sono francés is the title of the chapter. I'm going to let you in on a secret right here, right now, in the first chapter of this book. Ready? I'm not French. My great grandparents came to America from Italy, specifically Bari, a mid sized city right at the tip of the heel. When they arrived at Ellis Island, someone there misspelled their name Panettiere instead of Panettiere, and it stuck. They made their way to Bay Ridge, Brooklyn, home to a huge population of Italian immigrants at the time, and settled into an apartment. Then they had 8 kids, one of whom was my papa. Papa met and married my grandma in the early 1960s, and he adopted her curly-haired toddler son. That was my dad, Alan, aka Skip. Grandma, Papa and all of our friends and family pronounce our last name Panettiere, not Panettiere. I don't know if I'm saying even that differently, which is the pseudo French pronunciation my mom, Leslie, came up with after listening to people butcher my name for years. But I'm never offended. Regis Philibin even referred to me as Hayden Planetarium. Papa sure cared though. When he watched me make my first talk show appearance in the 90s and learned that I was calling myself Pan T Air, he stood up, started waving his arms, and ranted in Italian. Papa did that anytime he was mad, but trust me, no one was afraid of him. After my dad graduated high school, Grandma and Papa expected him to get a job, so he took the NYPD entrance exam and became a cop. Mom's path was different. Every member of her family went to college, including 15 of them who graduated from Duke. Mom's mom had Northern Italian roots, and she, Mom, my grampy, and my mom's older sister Jana lived in a small town in Indiana where Grampy was a well respected internist, internist specializing in heart conditions. But Mom was artistic and felt like a fish out of water in the middle of Indiana, and she couldn't wait to get out and do something radical. She finished high school early, went off to college, and then grad school, and set her sights on becoming a professional actor. Mom was forced to become independent early on, so it was no surprise that she was determined to do her own thing. When she was in seventh grade, Jana developed such severe anorexia that my grandparents checked her into a hospital in Michigan. Aunt Jana stayed there over a year, and Nana and Grampy drove 5 hours each way to see her on the weekends, leaving Mom on her own. With her parents so focused on Aunt Jana, Mom was lonely, but it forced her to become self-sufficient very early in life. Her fearless self-reliance took her from Indiana to Missouri for college, to Seattle for grad school, to LA for Hollywood. Finally, she landed in New York City, where her acting career really took off. Mom has a big, magnetic smile, high cheekbones, and sparkling brown eyes, and I always told her she was so beautiful she didn't need to wear much makeup. But to this day, she never leaves the house with her coral red lipstick on, and she reapplies it all day, every day. Her favorite color eyeshadow is purple, and her hair is naturally dark, but she used to color it honey blonde with highlights. My little brother once said, made her look tie dyed. For a little flourish, she teased her hair up high toward the back of her head. And before acrylic nails were everywhere, Mom had them. She always had a great figure and watches what she eats. But once I crept downstairs in my PJs late at night and saw Mom's back end sticking out from the open refrigerator, I yelled, Mom! Her backside jumped and her head popped out from behind the door. Mom's eyes were as wide as saucers. She had a spoon in her mouth and she was holding an open, half empty tub of I can't believe it's not butter. In the early 1980s, Mom lived in Manhattan and worked temp jobs to support herself when she wasn't acting. She booked some small film parts and did regional theater until she landed her first big role. Eddie Lester Donovan, Bryan Cranston's wife on ABC's Loving, their wedding, where Eddie wore a white flapper dress, was a soap opera's most watched episode in its second season. One day, Mom and a girlfriend walked into the subway station at 96th and Broadway and passed a cute, blonde, curly haired, baby faced transit cop named Skip. Dad had his eyes on Mom, but his immature yet well-intentioned strategy was to hit on her friend to get Mom's attention. He did, and they both ignored him. Never one to give up easily. Dad changed directions and hit Mom the following week. Success. She gave him her number. A few years later, Mom and Dad got married at a place called Boulderberg Manor in Tompkins Cove, New York, about 45 minutes north of Manhattan. Cops spend 90% of their time dealing with assholes. Dad once told me. When you're a firefighter, nobody ever treats you like that. Dad was no asshole, nor was he stupid. So after a few hard years as a cop in Harlem, he joined the New York City Fire Department. When he wasn't working, Dad liked to golf in Rockland County, a wooded suburban area, a short drive north of Manhattan and across the Hudson River. So he and Mom decided to look for houses there. The area was quiet and scenic, and on its eastern side was the Palisades, a long line of steep, dramatic cliffs with incredible views of the Hudson. Rockland County has a diverse combination of service workers like Dad, artists like Mom, and families who don't mind that a commute into the city means taking a bus or driving. There are no trains from Rockland County. Who don't who don't mind that a commute into the Sorry, there are no trains from Rockland County, making it feel both close to and far away from New York. Crucial to my newlywed parents, where they settled was a lot more affordable than the city. In fact, it was so livable that Mom and Dad realized they have a pretty great life there raising a family. Dad's job made the idea even more attractive. Like most firefighters in the FDNY, he worked in 24-hour shifts a few days a week, which meant he had uninterrupted stretches at home. It was a no brainer. Mom could have her career, and Dad could have his, and one of them would always be present for me and my brother. The year was 1989. George H.W. Bush was president and the economy was good. Sitcoms like Family Ties reigned on TV and the US was at peace. It was a perfect time to put down roots, and Mom and Dad were ready to make it happen. That's when I entered the scene. Mom didn't let pregnancy slow her down. If anything, it motivated her. And she was on stage as Titania in A Midnight Summer's Dream right when she started to show. The play was so popular, the producers extended it through Mom's 9 months. So the costume designers altered her dress to focus on the upstairs rather than the downstairs. The producer was afraid her water might break on stage. Considering the life I've had, this would have been hilariously poetic. But Mom finished the run to standing ovations wearing a dress that was bursting at the seams. By the end of summer of 1989, A Midnight Summer Dream was over, and so was Mom's pregnancy. On August 21st, after 24 hours of labor, I, Hayden Leslie Panettiere, came into the world with light, almond shaped eyes, a halo of strawberry blonde hair, big rosy cheeks, and creamy white skin. I also had a giant round head, which Dad's brother, Uncle Donnie, joked was going to snap my neck if Mom and Dad weren't careful. Mom claims that I came out of the womb, looked at her, and said, quote, "Thanks, but I've got it from here," end quote. Mom can embellish stories, but she understands independence better than anybody. So I'll take her word for it. She also says that everyone commented on what a bright eyed, unusually happy baby I was, smiling and laughing when I was held or when something excited me. I'd kick and babble like I was trying to put on a show, and maybe I was. I was a tiny firecracker, popping to life as if on cue. Soon, Mom's friends and colleagues started telling her that if Leslie Vogel didn't get this happy baby into modeling as quickly as possible as she could, she was missing the opportunity of a lifetime. Mom figured, what the heck? At the very least, she'd get some good baby pictures out of the whole experience. Maybe I'd earn even a little money for college. So Mom and I hit the ground running. This is so good. It's really sad how her mom treated her. I know. I know, right? Like reading it now. Yes, this is Mommy Dearest. You're an excellent reader. Oh, thank you. You're good at it. I could see you being a teacher. A teacher? No way. Back when the Cosby Show was on, they hid Claire's pregnancy too. Ugh. It sounds like her mom had some kind of eating disorder. I don't know. That's what I got from the eating the butter. Maybe there's no connection. Okay, let's continue. Chapters 2, Mornings with Michelin. In the spring of 1990, Mom strapped me into the car seat and got behind the wheel of our Volvo to drive into the city. It was before dawn and I was only 8 months old, but she and I had 30 miles to cover. I've signed with Wilhelmina Models, and my baby pictures had caught people's attention. This audition, if you could call it that, was for Michelin tires. Is it Michelin or Michelin? Michelin had a long running ad campaign that featured chubby, shirtless babies sitting inside a tire. So at the casting call, Mom stripped me down to my diaper and placed me at my designated spot. My giant head bobbed like a balloon on a string, and my body began swaying back and forth, then side to side. Please don't let her fall and hurt her head on the tire, Mom whispered to herself. I didn't topple over, but I didn't get the part. Tires and I weren't ready for each other just yet. At 11 months old, when my head fit my body a bit better, I auditioned for a play school toy trainer commercial. I sat up straight, smiled, and lit up like a Christmas tree when the casting director made funny faces. Mom and the director loved it, and I got the part. My first memory is watching a miniature play school train circle its tracks over and over and over, but that could be because the play school ad ran for years. Dad claims checks arrived in the mail all the time, but baby modeling is not a job that's going to make you rich. At best, I'd make a few $100s at each shoot. And if I was lucky, I might someday receive a residual check that hovered around two figures. 15% of that went from my employer into a trust I couldn't touch until I was 18. Those specifications were part of the Coogan Act, named after poor Jackie Coogan, a 1920s child actor whose parents squandered his money, and it was meant to safeguard children against abuse by employers or their parents. I don't remember much of anything about early commercials, but I know my parents did a great job protecting me, so exploitation was never on the table. I apparently enjoyed auditions and commercial shoots and never whined or squirmed on set. Besides, Mom says, you can't force a child to do something they're not comfortable with, especially Hayden. As my godmother said, I was a little willful child. Once in a while, Dad would take me to auditions, but his most notable contribution was near impossible, getting parking in the city. He was stationed at a busy firehouse in Harlem, which he loved because a busy firehouse is the best firehouse. Dad didn't enjoy the danger, but he was passionate about saving lives. On days off, Dad didn't need his FDNY parking placard, so Mom used it to park next to any New York City firehouse, knowing she wouldn't get ticketed or towed. Suddenly, driving and parking in the city wasn't torture. One booking led to another, then another. I like to think that casting directors kept hiring me because I seemed as a professional as a baby could be, but part of me thinks it was because I never cried. Crying on set means an hour of snot, drool, costume changes, and cleaning up a red, blotchy face, so a fussy baby very quickly becomes a baby without a job. I guess I just liked people. I was comfortable around strangers because they said nice things to me and made funny faces. I was also happy, confident, and eager to please, unbothered by cold rooms in strangers' hands and early morning wake ups. None of that made me cry. Or maybe even as a baby, I can sense when people were proud of me, especially Mom. Dad went with it partly because acting was Mom's thing. Dad occupied his own sphere in our world. The dependable, jack of all trades, the scrappy extrovert who made good money at an honorable job, and the golf junkie who was always playing a few holes or watching a tournament on TV. Mom was work, and Dad was play, but they filled in each other's gaps and shortcomings, at least in the first part of the marriage. Dad's biggest weakness was that he didn't want to rock the boat when Mom was onto something. Dad was a softie on the inside, and Mom was a force to be reckoned with. I know Dad had arguments between his head and his heart, with his heart questioning whether it was right to have his baby girl so busy all the time, being shuttled around from one audition to another. Dad was a grounded guy, and child acting was anything but normal. But he justified it. He said to himself, Maybe she's smiling because she loves it. She's not missing out on having fun because there are many other kids at auditions. And maybe baby modeling will give her a brilliant career and she'll never have to worry about money. Besides, just before my little brother came along, mom was completely in her groove. She juggled my schedule, spoke up for me on set, and kept the wolves at bay. With her leading the charge, there was no stopping us as we barreled towards my next gig. I kept getting callbacks, and mom and dad kept saying yes. I was given great opportunities, and there was no saying no to mom's drive. The abnormal had become entirely normal. I remember it like yesterday. I was standing in the living room of our house, staring through the dining room towards the kitchen. Mom and dad were at the kitchen table, which was a good 20 feet away from me, and they were talking about dad's new business. Dad had just started a flooring company called J&H Wood Flooring, with the H for Hayden and the J for his business partner's daughter. When he wasn't in the city at the firehouse, hardwood flooring was what he did. Some sixth sense came over me, and a light popped in my head. Mom, I blurted out. Yes, honey? You're pregnant, I said. No filter, no hesitation. Mom turned to me and scoffed. What are you talking about? I am not pregnant. Yes, you are, I answered, crossing my arms. I don't know why I knew, but I just knew. Not long after mom and dad told me I was going to be a big sister. On the night that I confronted her, mom was indeed pregnant, but she had no idea. That is wild. Okay, let me get to the next part. Yeah, we're going to talk about Lindsay Clancy later. Yeah. Ugh, I'm disgusted with Neutrogena. Okay, let's continue. Chapter 3. Stage Fright and Howard Stern. Try a minute. Dunkin' Donuts. Banana Nut Crunch. Jergens Eversoft. The lotion that lasts even after you wash your hands. Hershey's. Wendy's. Back when Dave Thomas was still alive. Nick's lice prevention spray, where I played the girl who used it and didn't get lice. My advertising jobs piled up, and I appeared in about 50 commercials by the time I was 5. Most commercial shoots were uneventful, but there was one I'll never let myself forget. When I was almost 5, I was cast in a commercial for Chex cereal. At one of the early rehearsals, I planted myself in a chair at the set's kitchen table, where a milkless bowl of Chex sat on a placemat. I looked to my right and watched the dreamiest 9-year-old boy I'd ever seen approach me. He had big blue eyes, wavy hair, and a kind face that seemed to say, I don't care if you're only 4, I think you're amazing. Hi, I'm Hayden, I said, picking up a few pieces of Chex and shoving them in my mouth. Nice to meet you, he said, sitting down. I'm playing your brother. We began to read our lines, and I moved in on the Chex. They tasted delicious, even without milk, so I gobbled up a few mouthfuls. Suddenly, my wishful logic crystallized. This boy and I were here because of Chex. Chex was an incredible cereal. We should all love it. If I showed him how dedicated I was to this job and by extension to Chex, he'd love me too. We need to start filming, the director said to my mom. Can you ask her to be ready? Hayden, mom whispered, yelled from across the room as she made slicing motion across my neck. Stop eating the cereal right now. Her eyes were so big and round, I thought they were going to pop out of her head. I did as I was told, but the Chex was too tempting, and I grabbed a bite. Mom and the director asked again, their patience clearly growing thin. One empty bowl of cereal later, the director politely told mom that while they were sure I was talented, they needed to cast someone who could focus on something other than food, or apparently, the boy playing my brother. Mom laughed it off at first, but then she made it clear she wasn't pleased that she lost a full day to traffic, makeup, hair, and my lust for boys and checks. If it was under her watch, it was going to be the first and last time that I got fired from a job. Soon, I was auditioning for television shows. Mom had discovered Howard Stern, who started bright and early at 6 a.m. on 92.3 WXRK FM. So she'd rush me into the car at least twice a week and crank up the volume. We were always running late, so we'd barrel down the Palisades Parkway through New Jersey, and I'd recite the lines she taught me while Howard said something unfit for children's ears. We'd head east over the George Washington Bridge, straight into Manhattan, then zip south toward our final destination. With so many callbacks, I had a momentum as a child actor. As I transitioned from toddler to little girl, my voice grew loud and husky, and my hair got longer, curlier, and messier. I started to roll my eyes when mom bought me pink, girly clothes, and I begged her to let me dress in pants and sweatshirts like the tomboy I'd become. In audition and on sets, I put on spunky, sassy attitude. In everyone's eyes, I was grown up in kid form, capable of telling it like it was about the deliciousness of Wendy's chicken nuggets or the need to give me just the right medicine when I was sick. I was faking that confidence during pretty much every audition. I tried as hard as I could to hide it, but when I stepped in front of the producers, the director, and a casting director, my hands and voice would start to shake. Before I opened my mouth to say my lines, I was racked with nerves, convinced I'd settled on the wrong word, lose my train of thought, or forget my lines entirely. At first, the adrenaline forced me to step up to the plate, but then I realized I was being scrutinized and judged. My nerves motivated me, but then they turned around and paralyzed me. If I messed up, what would people think of me? What would mom say? I knew it wouldn't be good. During our drives into the city, I felt like I was teetering on the edge, and mom's driving didn't help. One time, she hit the guardrail on the right side of the George Washington Bridge, and our car squealed and shuddered as it scraped against the barrier's concrete base. Damn it, mom yelled, turning down to Howard Stern and swerving back into our lane. I got distracted. Say it all again, and please do not phone it in. Don't phone it in was her favorite line. It was my signal to get my act together and reach the top of my game, stage fright or not. Parents of child actors were required by law to always be on set during filming, but not during auditions. So either dad or mom was always outside waiting for me. Most of the time, it was mom. I'd say my lines, trying my best to be cute and projecting my voice the way mom had taught me. When the director called cut, I always stopped what I was doing, marched out the door, and ran straight to mom. I think I did okay, I'd say tentatively. Did you give 150%? She'd ask. I did. But the truth was more complicated than that, and I didn't tell mom. My fear was so pronounced, it took every ounce of strength I had to get out there and ace it. I was determined to make mom and everyone proud, but the pressure overwhelmed me. Then, and my worst nightmare happened, and I did freeze up during an audition. Just before Jansen was born, I auditioned for a Kodak ad, and as I stepped towards the masking tape, T that marked my position, a boy appeared out of nowhere. He was about my age and he was cute, about a thousand times more than the Chex boy. Just say your lines to each other, the casting director told us. I thought I was doing this alone, I said to myself as red heat rushed to my face. My heart stopped and my hands started shaking. Between this perfect 4-year-old specimen standing across from me and the fact that I was terrified of making a mistake, I didn't know where to start. So I smiled and took a deep breath. The director called action, and the boy began reciting his lines. My tongue felt like it was coated with peanut butter, so I mumbled mine in response. He said his next few lines, this time with more confidence, and I paused, then opened my mouth. Not a single word came out. I took another deep breath, then cleared my throat. Again, nothing. I stared at the boy, and he smiled meekly, like he was both embarrassed for me and mystified that I'd frozen up. I'd been doing this whole routine since before I could walk, and this was never supposed to happen. I turned towards the casting director and her assistant. Their faces blurred, then melted together into one face with purple eyeshadow and coral red lips. Mom. I stepped off my tee and skulked towards the door, stopping at the casting director's table before I exited. Uh, did I get the job? I asked, deep in denial. Oh, we'll see, she answered kindly. Now go find your mom. I opened the door and walked right back to where mom was sitting. How did it go? She said. For a hot minute, I contemplated letting my manager tell her. Then I relented. I didn't do it. Mom stood up. You didn't do it? I drove all the way here and you just walked out? We'll talk about it in the car. Get in your stroller. Mom had brought along the stroller because it made hustling a 4-year-old down Manhattan Street easier for a pregnant woman. Mom pushed me out the door and onto the sidewalk, moving a little more quickly than she had on the way to the audition. My heart was pounding. Mom was a perfectionist, and she knew what I was capable of. She expected the best for me, and I hadn't come close to delivering that. Now she was disappointed in me, and that was a fate worse than death. Mom had several levels of anger. When she was irritated, she opened her mouth ever so slightly. When she was mad, she clenched her jaw. When she was so angry that my best option was to hide under my bed, her lower jaw migrated a few centimeters forward. I looked up and back at mom, and there was that soul shattering underbite. We got in the car and drove home in silence as shame overcame me. It was after 10 a.m., so I didn't even have Howard Stern to distract from mom's anger. That's the end of that chapter. Wow. Isn't this wild? Oh my god, isn't this book so good? I can't even believe it. It's really sad. It makes me wanna cry, I don't know why. Am I just being over emotional because of the Lindsay Clancy case? Maybe. But, it's very sad. Cheers. 4 years old, I cannot even imagine. I cannot even imagine. That's brutal. Mhm. Why am I thinking that her mom isn't very nice? Sad face. Hi, Melanie. It's pretty deep. Yeah, it is. Um, I'm hooked. Let's keep going. Yes. So we're on part 4 now. She was so exploited. Like we struggle with what we all have dealt with individually, right? You as an individual and me and as an individual. But like I can't imagine growing up like this. I really cannot. I feel like I would have a meltdown like every day of my life. It's just a lot of pressure, a lot of trying to fit in, fame, money, perverted adults. Like honestly, I can't even imagine. This makes more sense too when we hear about all of her struggles, right? Like clearly there was like some trauma that she just wasn't able to 100% heal from. I've heard her speak about her mom in interviews, just awful. Yeah. And people have nothing nice to say about her mom. So I struggle with that. So I think if I have nothing nice to say, I might just not say it at all. But like I have struggle with that because like I'm really close to my mom and like I could never see her even acting like anything like this. Even if I was famous and was a child actor and grew into being a Hayden, um, it's just, I don't know. You can feel that they're so different. She never experienced being a child. No, she didn't. It's sad. Okay. Part 4. Chapter 4. Taking Beats. Jansen Renee Panettiere came into the world on September 25th, 1994. At only 6 pounds, he was a tiny thing, with dark peach fuzz from head to toe and a cone-shaped head. To add insult to injury, he was cross-eyed. I looked like a Gerber baby the day I was born. Jansen looked like he hadn't quite evolved. This is interesting, Mom said after a few hours after Jansen's delivery when she'd taken a good look at him. Are you sure he's mine? Mom's skin was smooth as silk, and even though her hair was naturally dark underneath, her highlights, it had an auburn hue. Dad was as baffled as Mom. Look at those eyebrows, he said. They're huge. It was like Mom and Dad had passed Jansen all the DNA I didn't have, then thrown in a little hair just for fun. The first time I saw Jansen in the hospital, I was skeptical at best. I thought I'd be getting a new doll, but this thing was more like a fuzzy stuffed animal and not one of those expensive brand name ones you get at Christmas. With Mom lying in a bed holding him, it was clear that she and Dad were no longer mine and mine alone. We were a family of 4 now, and I knew that was just the way it was going to be. Within a few days, though, all of my jealousy faded away. Despite Jansen's weird monkey features, I was fascinated by him, and I felt drawn to him in an instinctive way. I decided I'd been put on this earth to protect him, and as a responsible 5-year-old, I could take care of him just fine. So I begged Mom and Dad to let me carry him. And when Jansen was a few months old, Mom relented. Hold him like this, Mom said, placing him in my arms as we stood outside near our Volvo. Good. Now you can walk to the car and put him in the car seat. Mom opened the car door and motioned for me to place him inside. I tiptoed forward, gripping him tightly in my arms. How do I put him in? I asked. Oh no, Mom, he's slipping. Thud. Jansen slid out of my arms and landed on the ground. Oh my God, Mom yelled. You dropped him. Jansen started to scream, and I looked at Mom, my face white as a ghost. I'm sorry, I yelled, but I only did it once. My brother wasn't dead, but he sure had a serious set of pipes. In 1994, my television auditions paid off, and I landed a role on the ABC soap opera One Life to Live, playing a young girl named Sarah Roberts. I was going to be a soap opera actress, just like Mom. I didn't really know what to make of the soap operas, except that Mom told me they were very dramatic and that only grown-ups watched them. I vaguely recalled seeing one on the TV and thinking how boring it looked. It didn't make sense that the characters dressed so nicely, with their hair up and their makeup done, even when they were just standing around in their living rooms. Or why were the final scenes comically long, with the soundtrack's organ stuck on the same endless note? Question mark. People were always finding their long lost twins or discovering their father wasn't actually their dad, and their emotions were always over the top. It was all just weird. But now it was my world. I had to get up to speed fast. So I did. I learned that One Life to Live was a mainstay on ABC, and its most famous star was Erica Slezak, who played Victoria Vicky Lord, the matriarch of the Lord family. Erica would go on to win 6 Daytime Emmy Awards and remain on the show for over 40 years. She's a legend. The words were the rich family in town. The Lords were the rich family in town. And Sarah Roberts was one of them. In fact, her mother was Tina, Vicky Lord's sister. And while Sarah wouldn't be in every episode, her birth had been a pivotal plot point a few seasons back because a pregnant Tina hadn't been able to figure out who her baby's father was. And then Vicky shot one of the possible fathers in self-defense. The kind of thing that happens all the time in every small town. I was so young, I wouldn't have many lines. But mom wanted me that I memorize all of my scenes before shooting, so I know exactly when and where I had to be. That was because soap operas filmed one episode per day, not over the course of several days. Trust me, an entire hour is a lot to store in your brain. My call was at 6 a.m. at ABC Studio 17 on West 66th Street between Columbus and Central Park West. Mom and I had to leave the house just after 5 a.m., and I sat in the back seat, and mom sped along. I committed my scenes to memory. The fact mom had highlighted them to activate my focus made the job a little easier. At that age, my brain was a sponge. Every night, I could memorize more than the day before and recall them more quickly on the car ride to the set. One Life to Live became a master class in cramming, a skill most people don't learn until college when they stay up all night studying for finals. I learned how to cram when I was 5. Mom claims that One Life to Live was the first place she began to take my acting seriously, like it was something I could do for the rest of my life. In the middle of one of my scenes, a lead actress approached mom as she stood outside of the set. Your daughter can really act, my castmate said. Mom smiled. You don't have to say that to me. She's just a kid. And besides, I'm not that kind of stage mom. No, I mean it, she said, putting her hand lightly on mom's arm. You trained an actor, so you know what I mean. She's 5 years old and she's taking beats. Beats are unwritten moments in a scene when a character has the opportunity to shift the tone or the emotional direction. It's up to an actor to find that beat, then adjust their acting accordingly. Mom looked at me and took notice. I had absorbed all the acting directions she'd given me and was now processing my facial expressions, gestures, and lines rather than doing them by rote, rote, rote. I wasn't just reacting. I was actively thinking about my character, then progressing towards the objective of the scene. Oh my God, mom said. You're right. I didn't know it, but that moment was my beat. When I transitioned from an actor who was a child to a child actor, the tone and emotion behind my work shifted, and I matured in everyone's eyes. Mom saw me differently. She knew the world would treat me differently from here on out. I loved what I was doing, but none of us fully realized how not normal it was. While most kids my age were in preschool learning the basics of reading, my mom was reading me my lines. And they weren't happy go lucky, Barney the purple dinosaur lines either. I had to learn phrases like, quote, Mommy, don't leave me, end quote. Mom signed me up for swim classes and gymnastics. I was compact and strong, so gymnastics was a natural fit for me. But even doing those, quote, normal activities, I suspected I was different from all the other kids in my town. In first grade, someone finally called me out on my differences, and that acknowledgement broke my heart. Starting in kindergarten, I attended William O. Schaefer Elementary School in Tappan, which is about 20 minutes south of the house we lived in Congers. I don't remember exactly how the shaming started or what words put me so firmly in the corner. I only remember the silence of the classroom as I packed up my backpack to leave for yet another audition, and the whispers of someone at my table asking, why does she get to skip school? Then I recall looking over at Miss Rogers, my teacher, and seeing her start to frown. Hayden has another audition, she said, sighing. I guess it's more important than whatever we're learning in school. I rushed out of class, glad to get away. If I didn't fit into the world I should fit into, maybe I was better off at this other weird world that had taken center stage in my life. But none of it sat truly right with me. I was a child in an adult world half the time and a little grown up in a child's world half the other. Part of me just wanted to have friends, a place at a cafeteria table, teachers who were kind to me, and lots of fun at recess. But another part of me loved the rush I got from acting and the fact that it made mom so proud. When you don't really fit in anywhere, all you want to do is fit in somewhere. But in first grade, I didn't know where that somewhere was. Oh my god, this is so good. We're starting chapter 5 now. Oh my god. Isn't this such a good book? I'm having so much fun reading it. Are we good? Is everyone good? Am I reading okay? Check in time. So we can talk about Lindsay after. Hooked. I know, right? I just want to read through all of it. Yes, Smelly. Okay, good. Let's continue. Chapter 5. Trigger tears. When I was almost 8 years old, I got the role of Lizzie Spaulding on CBS's Guiding Light. I said goodbye to One Life to Live, moved down to set 9 blocks south of ABC on West 57th Street, and prepared myself to become a troubled child from Springfield's most prestigious family. Little did I know Lizzie was about to have a rough few years under my watch. She could kidnap, shoot, and kill her mom's boyfriend, develop leukemia, which was cured through a grueling bone marrow transplant, and then fake a second case of leukemia. I was only supposed to appear in a few episodes, but mom told me if I upped my game and learned lines as well as I memorized scenes, the directors might consider making me a regular character. This means you're written into the script for almost every episode, and it hadn't happened on One Life to Live. I know you've committed the scene to memory, so say that line with more authority, mom said from the front seat as she pushed pedal to the metal. This isn't a kitchen sink drama. I cleared my throat and started all over. Still not there, my mom demanded. Try again. I did as I was told, all the way across 2 states and one mighty river. The other reason mom was convinced I might become a regular character was because she had taught me how to start crying at the exact moment a script called for it. She called these trigger tears, and to summon them up, all I had to do was imagine the most horrific thing that could happen to an 8-year-old, like my cat dying or dad suffering an agonizing death in a blazing house, and the tears would well up. After a lot of practice, I also figured out that if I held in my tears until it felt like my body might crack and crumble, the drama doubled. Then the waterworks really got going. The first big test of my trigger tears came when we filmed a scene in which my TV mom, Beth Rains, who was mentally unstable after a lifetime of trauma, stormed out of the house in her mink coat, walked in front of a moving car, got hit, and suffered a head injury. When Lizzie went to the hospital to see her, Beth was lying on a stretcher, blood covering her forehead. This was my big moment. A bloody, suicidal mom in cold, sterile place about to be wheeled off to God knows where. That was enough to make any kid upset. But Beth Rains and Lizzie Spaulding were fictional. My pet guinea pig, Christopher Robin the third, however, was entirely real. I conjured him up and I pictured myself holding his soft, furry body in the palms of my hands, where it was dark, warm, and hidden, just the way he liked. Sometimes I even tucked him under my chin to make him feel extra comfy and safe. Then I thought of the adorable high pitched squeaks he let out anytime I approached him. I adored Christopher Robin III. I held in my tears. I imagined his funeral. I'd make a little headstone for him and bury him under a tree in our yard. I felt the pressure inside me building and the tears welling up. Hold it in, Hayden. Hold it in. When I felt like I was about to pop, I let loose and turned it on just like mom had taught me to do. Mommy, mommy, I screamed, sobbing. My TV dad, played by Grant Alexander, lifted me into his arms as technicians rolled the stretcher away. Then I broke free and ran, screaming to a window, where I peered down a hall and saw my bloody, bruised mother disappear. My chest heaved, my voice cracked. My face turned red, and honest to God, tears streamed down my face. The second the scene ended, the director turned to my mom. What just happened? That's my girl, answered mom. Later that day, the producer, Paul Ro- Rosh, approached my mom and asked if he could make Lizzie Spaulding a regular character on the show. He said they couldn't fit me into the rest of the season's episode, but when the next season started up, I was in. The trigger tears had sealed the deal. When Lizzie was about to begin chemotherapy, she got on her knees and prayed to God that her hair wouldn't fall out, and I cried like my cat had just died. When Lizzie got shot, when Lizzie shot and killed Carl Stevens, the man who threatened her mother one day with a gun, I wailed like mom had abandoned our family and had taken dad with her. The tears were genuine because the emotions were genuine. None of this was good for my developing brain. Over the past few years, I spent a lot of time reading about how the brain processes stressful events. I've learned that my childhood catastrophizing activated my am- amygdala, hippocampus, and hypothalamus and prefrontal cortex areas of the brain that are responsible for processing fear and anxiety. I know I said some of those wrong. Sorry. Wow. That's sad. When I thought of something devastating, these parts of my brain sent messages throughout my body, and my heart rate rose, and my stress hormones, including cortisol and adrenaline, flooded my body. I would go into artificial fight or flight response every time I willed myself to cry, even though absolutely nothing had happened. Very quickly, that level of disaster preparation will wear a person down. Directors, fans, and mom praised me endlessly for my over the top dramatic responses. Subconsciously, I began to associate catastrophe with adoration. People loved me because make believe bad things happened to me. Grown-ups gave me positive attention when, as an actor, I failed, got sick, screamed and cried, killed, grieved, and suffered. Reality merged with my imagination and burrowed into my core memories, where all my shame and trauma lived. Is it any wonder why I face so many real struggles in my life? I've often wondered whether unintentionally I brought my own traumas on because I'm wired to think they're good for me. Of course, no one realized the damage that was being done to my body and spirit at the time, least of all, mom and dad. My time on Guiding Light felt like a huge achievement, and I loved it because it was fun. Once, Lizzie Spaulding wandered through the woods in the dark and fell down a well. Her stepmom, Harley Cooper, who later became her aunt, don't ask, rescued her by scaling into the wall, then climbing out with me on her back. I accepted that challenge with open arms. Gymnastics had made me sturdy and strong, and I flung my body into the well and clung onto Harley like we were both made of Velcro. Ever since that day, I've loved how physical acting can be. As far as I'm concerned, bring on all the stunts because I'll do them in a heartbeat. Today, I see the positive emotional benefits of physicality. Experts say that one of the healthiest and most accessible ways to process trauma is to move your muscles. Exercise of any sort releases the emotional and physical discomfort created by the flight or flight response, allowing the painful memories that reside in your body to dissipate. To rephrase and reframe the words of trauma researcher and psychiatrist Bezel van der Kolk, the body will no longer keep the score. While I climbed out of that well, I was releasing all of my self created bad thoughts. Just like that, my life quakes floated away. Not everything about my body followed my acting schedule, especially my teeth. It's a fact of life that kids lose their baby teeth. Fortunately, One Life to Live and Guiding Light didn't care. Sarah Roberts and Lizzie Spaulding were children and they matured into all the physical way a young child does. If I returned to the set without my front teeth, that meant the tooth fairy had come to the Spaulding house. Life moved on in Springfield. Commercials were different. A lost tooth was a lost job. Mom, I said tentatively one day when I was 8. Bad news. I opened my mouth to show her my right front tooth was no longer there. Oh no, what are we going to do? Mom pleaded as my stomach started roiling. I'd been cast in a commercial that was shooting in 2 days, and mom knew what was at stake. Hang on, I have an idea, mom said, moving towards the kitchen phone. I need to make a call. 2 hours later, mom announced that I should get my shoes and coat on right away because we were going to the dentist. Dr. Bob was a family friend, and while he'd never been my dentist, mom assured me that whatever procedure he was going to do was simple. In a few days, you're going to have a tooth again, mom said with authority. Just trust me. I winced. God knows what mom had in mind. Dr. Bob walked into the room not long after I situated myself in a dental chair that was much too big for me. He asked me to open my mouth, and when I did, he looked up at mom. Piece of cake, Leslie. We'll give her a flipper. I looked skeptically at mom. What in the world was a flipper? A nice dental assistant took a mold of my top teeth, and Dr. Bob explained to me and mom that a flipper is a retainer with an acrylic palate. However, because the flipper doesn't straighten anything, there are no wires. Instead, stuck to the front of the palate is an artificial tooth that fits squarely where the missing tooth used to be. When I put the flipper in my mouth, no one would know I lost a tooth. Mom smiled. It sounds perfect. But if there are no wires, how does the flipper stay in? Dr. Jones sat forward and pointed his rubber glove fingers in the direction of my mouth, a move that made me wince. Simple. Use Fixodent. Just smear it on the pink palette and stick the flipper to the top of her mouth. Then you're good to go. Fixodent. The name was familiar. It sounded a little like some kind of gross medicine. Then I remembered I'd seen it on TV. Fixodent came in a toothpaste tube, but wasn't toothpaste. It was a sticky pink slime. In its commercial, someone would smear it on a scary looking set of fake teeth and put the teeth in hot water to show you how well Fixodent could hold them. Suddenly, it hit me. Fixodent was used on dentures, and only old people had dentures. On the day of the commercial shoot, mom and I pulled into our parking spot right outside the studio. Mom reached into her purse and removed a tube of Fixodent, followed by my flipper. She squeezed pink goo out of the tube onto the palette and then handed me the flipper. It's one fake tooth extending down like a claw. Put it in, mom said. I took a deep breath and said a silent prayer that my tongue wouldn't touch the slime, but and put the torture device into my mouth. This tastes terrible, mom, I pleaded. The flipper hadn't just given me a new tooth, it had also given me a lisp. With each new lost tooth, I got a new flipper, or at least a new tooth for the same old flipper until my mouth was too big for the acrylic palette to fit. I never got used to the taste of Fixodent. It was supposed to be minty fresh, but it tasted more like slimy metal. This all worked just fine until one day it didn't. When I was about 9, mom and I flew to Chicago for a commercial shoot. At that time, Chicago was a major base for commercial filming, probably because producers got more bang for their buck there on either there than on either coast. I lost a tooth a few weeks before, so I had my flipper packed and ready. Because I was convinced that if I wished hard enough, nothing would happen. I didn't tell mom I had another wiggly tooth. There wasn't any sense in worrying her. The night before the audition, I bit into something sticky and hard, and the tooth promptly exited my mouth. Mom, I yelled under my breath, terrified about her reaction. I just lost a tooth. We were far away from home with an important job in less than 24 hours. There was no Dr. Bob on speed dial, nor was there any dentist. Mom could strong arm for a last minute appointment for something purely cosmetic and completely absurd. Mom held out her hand and I dropped the tooth into it. She ran to our hotel bathroom and returned with makeup bag, then pulled out a tube of Fixodent. Open your mouth, she insisted, and I did as I was told. Mom squeezed a dab of Fixodent onto the tooth, used a tissue to wipe my gums dry, and then popped the tooth into the gap. A metallic taste filled my mouth, and within seconds, the baby tooth fell out. What are we going to do? I cried. I could tell mom was on edge, and when mom got a bad case of nerves, I did too. Get your coat on, mom said after a few tense seconds. We're going to the hardware store. Half an hour later, when we returned to our hotel room, mom emptied her bag and placed a small tube of super glue next to my flipper. Give me the tooth you lost, she said, and cross your fingers. I dutifully handed mom the tooth and watched her squeeze a dab of super glue onto it. Then she affixed the tooth to the flipper. We have to wait 10 seconds till it dries, she said, but this is going to work. I know it. Partly in horror and partly out of respect for the McGavr like skills I had no idea she possessed, I stepped back to give mom some room. What if it's crooked and doesn't fit? I asked. Mom smiled devilishly. Then we try again. A few seconds later, mom handed me the flipper, now containing two teeth, and I slipped it tentatively into my mouth. A little voice in my head told me that if the super glue wasn't dry, I was going to live with this flipper for all eternity. I closed my mouth and licked my top teeth. Then I opened my mouth and smiled. It fits? Question mark, mom asked. Yes, mom, I answered. It fits. List be damned. I got the job done. Why do I just not like her mom the more we read? Oh my God. I don't even think I've ever used fixodent in my life. I'm surprised Hayden grew up as well as she did in these conditions. It's all starting torture, right? This sounds like a miserable childhood. You know what? And her mom just wants that check. Her mom just wants that money from her daughter being an actress and the fame. I know exactly. She's feeling like, oh my God, my daughter's going to be famous. We're going to never have to worry about like I can see it in my head. I can see it. Her mom is awful. Yeah. I don't know how she's going to live with that on her conscience. It sucks. Should we do one more chapter? Her mom makes me mad on how she treated Hayden. Yeah, I said we were gonna do chapters 1 through 5, but I'm down to do another one if you guys want. Her mom makes me mad on how she treated Hayden. She's probably going to come out with a book. Listen, if her mom comes out with a book, I'm gonna be fucking pissed. And I'm gonna go to a book meet and I'm gonna throw it at her. Just kidding, but that's what I would like to do, but I would never do that. Her mom is mean. Oh no. I've crossed into being a bully. One more. Yeah, we can do more. It's so good. I can't wait to get to everything else with Brian and all of that. Do you know how good that's gonna be? I mean, not like good that it happened, but the book is what I'm saying. Okay, let's continue to chapter 6. Chapter 6, Little House on the Hudson. Dad had big news. We're moving. Your mother and I are building a house in another town. Jansen was just a baby, so I took on the role of being excited for the both of us. A new house meant more room and new friends. No more feeling like the odd person out, and no more scolding from my teachers. Best of all, no more harsh, judgmental Miss Rogers. Mom also assured me my famous artists lived in our future town, which in my mind would make the fact that I was on TV seem completely normal. Laurence Olivier and Vivian Leigh once lived there, she said, and now Barry Schnickoff, I don't know who that is, does. The town we'd be moving to was called Sneeden's Landing, and it was about 10 miles south of our current house in Congers. But Sneeden's Landing wasn't any old town. It was known as a historic hamlet. Sneeden's Landing had been developed as an artist colony in the early 20th century, and the name of its oldest houses reflected its distinct personality. There was a clock house. Yes, there was a massive clock on the roof. The Ivy House, large and covered in ivy. The Ferry House, near the Hudson. You take a guess. And the Pirate's Lair. No clue. Some of its 100 houses even predated the 1800s, like the Ding Dong House, built in 1750, and formerly home to a giant bell with a really wimpy name. In addition to Mikhail Baryshnikov, Bill Murray lived in Sneeden's Landing, as did John Voight's French ex wife, who moved there with her two children after the divorce. Mom said one of the kids was named Angie. In Sneeden's Landing, Halloween was the event of the year, with trick or treaters running up and down the streets, knocking on the doors of pointy roofed wooden houses that looked like they might belong to witches. The acre of land Dad was building on was right in front of a small historic church called the Palisades Presbyterian, and there was a swim club less than a mile or so away where I could join the swim team. The only issue we faced was that the house wasn't ready yet. Until it was, we'd live in a small guest cottage on the construction site. Guest cottage is a generous term. The building was more like a metal box. I might have been a tomboy up for most challenges, but this shack made the cabin in the little house on the prairie look like Buckingham Palace. The place was just weird. The entrance led directly into the kitchen and living room, and when you walk through them, you find yourself in the bathroom. Yes, the bathroom was right smack in the middle of the house, surrounded by all of the other rooms. I don't remember any of the bedrooms, but that's probably because the bathroom loomed so large in my mind. It was always a little drafty, but Dad assured us we would be fine. In fact, a cool house was a good house because we didn't have air conditioning. No big deal. We'd only be there a few months until we could move into the house of our dreams. A few months passed, fall turned to winter, and just after 1995 became 1996, a historic blizzard hit. On January 6, 1996, an Arctic high pressure system formed somewhere north of New York City, and over the course of a few days, the entire Northeast became a dumping ground for snow. Construction on our new house ground to a halt as big white drifts piled up in our driveway and yard. 6-year-old me normally would have begged Mom to let me bundle up in my snowsuit and run outside to play, but I couldn't get out the door. The wind was blowing the snow sideways, blocking all the exits to our house. Then things got much, much worse. Skip, Mom yelled as the sun dipped in the sky one afternoon. The heat's off. We have no heat. She was holding Jansen, and his little teeth were chattering. Dad was a consummate handyman and was always fixing something around the house, but his skills extended to flooring and fires, not extreme cold and snowdrifts. Or maybe he just hadn't faced that kind of challenge. We must have run out of propane, he said, and there is not a damn person in this county who can drive on those roads to get propane. Not me, not anyone. Mom's face was white, and for once, she was speechless. So grab all the blankets you can, Dad said assertively. We're going to hunker down tonight, and tomorrow I'll propane it if it kills me, and it might just kill me. That night, Mom bundled me and Jansen into our snowsuits, hats, and wool mittens. She placed us in the middle of the bed, and then she and Dad climbed in on either side and wrapped their arms around us. Then Jansen started to cry. It's okay, Jansen. We're going to make it, I said. All night long, we clung to each other under blankets, desperate for any bit of heat our bodies could produce. Mom whispered words of encouragement, while Dad tried to make it seem like a grand adventure. Dad was great at that. Every time we drove to see Mom's parents in Indiana, he took the middle seat out of the beat up burgundy van he used for his flooring company and made a fort. Then he plugged a TV and VCR into the cigarette lighter so I could curl up in blankets and watch movies on VHS tapes the whole drive. We're just a family sitting in our igloo, Dad said in a sing-song voice. We spent all day outside in the freezing cold, and now it's time to go to bed. Let's sleep a couple of hours, and then I'll go out and gather berries. By sunrise, we weren't suffering from frostbite, but none of us had slept a wink. Dad extracted himself from the bundle of blankets, and my arms walked to the window and opened it. A pile of snow fell inside the shack, and Dad stuck his head out and then turned to us and smiled. He says, "It stopped. I'll be back with propane soon." Dad was an even bigger hero to me after that. When the house was finally move-in ready, I created a space in the corner of my room and placed a framed picture of him on the side table. He was surrounded by his firefighter friends, young and smiling, with that baby face that had won mom over. Looking at it, I could almost smell the smoke and clung to his clothes after 24 hours at work. He was wearing his suit and helmet just like all the other guys in the photo. A lot of those same faces would be gone forever on a sunny September morning a few years later. I didn't realize how hard it must have been for mom with me idolizing dad. He got to walk in and be the hero while she was a stickler and the one who put her foot down when dad said, "Go talk to your mother." But that was just our dynamic. It's what Jensen and I knew. For a long time, it worked. I adored our new house. It looked a lot like an old home, but not one of those witchy ones with a funny name. It had a uh, ga- gabbled roof, dormer windows, and two wooden fireplaces with mosaic tiling, all of which made it look like it was a part of a fairy tale. Thanks to dad's business, we got the best floors possible. Hardwood throughout with parquet in some rooms. Jansen's floor had a light blue tint, and since mom's was still determined to make me a girly girl, she asked dad to make my floors lavender with white borders. Then she hung shades in the window that had angels on them. I didn't argue because it was not a fight I was going to win. It was a lovely house, the kind of place that held promise and that four people with a desire to love, grow, and work and be a family could settle in and flourish. Mom and dad had put their hearts and souls into it as well as their life savings. It was 4,300 square feet after all. I didn't fully grasp it at the time, but they had done this for me and Jansen. They wanted us to feel rooted in a comfortable, protected place. This house was that, and then some. I immediately set off into the woods, imagining that I was on an adventure and that no one would ever find me. I'd stay there half the day happily. Our property had become my secret hideaway. For the first time in as long as I could remember, I began to feel truly safe, secure, and at home. There was an unstated understanding in Sneeden's Landing that it was okay to be a little artistic or unconventional, like the Ding Dong House. We were all impressive, but just the tiniest bit weird. I started to make friends who didn't raise their eyebrows at me or question the validity of what I did. If I dug below the surface, I discovered their hobbies and lives and families were different, just like mine. It was a breath of fresh air, and I loved exploring and taking it all in. One of my first friends was a girl named Madison who lived nearby. Her dad was a doctor and they owned a huge property I could ride my bike to. If you headed down their driveway and through the woods behind their house, you'd stumble on the small farm Madison's family kept with two donkeys named Jackpot and Maggie May, goats, and a beady eyed nocturnal creature called a sugar glider. Closer to the house was an enclosure with chickens and a very mean turkey who I soon learned to respect rather than fear. Madison and I created a game called Get in the Cage, where we'd lock ourselves in the enclosure and scream when the turkey ran after us. On the outside of the enclosure roamed their peacocks. They were gorgeous and they really got around the neighborhood. After a play date at Madison's, I returned to my bike and without fail it would be covered in peacock poop. Inside the house, Madison's mom, who soon became a second mother to me, kept chinchillas, a monkey, a macaw who lived on a perch in Madison's mom's reading room. You and all of my kids hate the macaw, Madison's mom used to say, but I love him. Then there were the dogs. They had more dogs than the Humane Society. Madison's house was heaven to me, not just because her parents were so kind and because I loved her when her mom called me her kid, but because animals were very quickly becoming my favorite things in life. People ask me all the time if I would have chosen acting if I hadn't been something I fell into as a child. Honestly, I'm not sure. Acting had been part of my fiber of my being for so long that it might as well be imprinted on my DNA. Acting is what I've trained myself in and what my body and mind have always directed me to do. It's like Favoring a certain hand or speaking your native language, you can't pinpoint how those practices become so natural, but they were undoubtedly part of your foundation. So, I suppose I could have decided to become an actor, but I know I would have chosen to work with animals. Animals give me a perspective, making my role on this planet seem minuscule in the face of all they do and how well they survive and adapt. Animals give love without expecting something in return and show joy without embarrassment or shame. Jackpot, Maggie May, the dogs, and those peacocks didn't recoil in their stage fright. They expressed their needs, never worrying about letting others down. One day, Madison and I were playing in her backyard when a boy a little younger than us came out of the big house that backed up to hers. Madison nodded her head when she saw him. "That's Caleb," she said to me. "If you're nice to him, I bet he'll let you play with the puppies his dog just had." Puppies? This was music to my ears. Madison nodded, and I motioned to her to walk up to Caleb to ask him about the puppies. Right then, an older man came out of the house and walked towards us. He had dark, droopy eyes and hair that stood up and out in all directions. I figured he'd just woken up from a nap. "Caleb," the man called. "Did you ask Madison and her friend about seeing the puppies?" He looked towards Madison. "How are you doing?" "Fine," Madison answered. "This is my friend Hayden." "Hi, Hayden," he responded. I could have sworn I'd seen this man somewhere before, but I couldn't place his face or remember his name. I realized that the more polite I was to him, though, the longer he'd probably let me play with his puppies. So I smiled sweetly and cleared my throat. "I think I know you. Do you work with my dad?" "I don't know," he replied flatly. "What does your dad do?" "He owns a flooring company. He's also a firefighter." The man smiled and nodded his head. "Maybe," he said quietly. Then he turned and motioned for us to follow him. As I walked towards his house, I suddenly realized that I told mom I would be home within an hour. It was almost dinner time, and she and dad expected me to help out. I could risk getting in trouble to play with the puppies, or I could do the right thing and start to head back. The choice was agonizing. I th- I thought, my heart aching, I need to go home. I grabbed Madison's arm. "I'm going to ride my bike back now. I told mom I'd be back by dinner. By the way, who is this guy?" Madison turned to me, laughed, and rolled her eyes. "Geez, Hayden, it's Bill Murray. Some kind of actor you are." Bill Murray might have been my first accidental celebrity sighting, but he wasn't my last. "Hayden, can you go down the street and give our new neighbors this plant?" Mom yelled up to the stairs to me a year or so after we'd moved into our house. "Sure, where?" I asked, my reluctance to meet new people now I think of the past. Mom told me which house after I walked into the kitchen and then handed me a potted plant. "Take your brother. Hold his hand when you cross the street, please." Jansen was a deeply sensitive child and often had night terrors, so he slept with mom and dad. Every time they left us with the babysitter so they could go out, he clung to mom's leg, then cried for an hour after she pried him off. Dad said it was enough to make him never want to take mom out again. So, as I reached for the potted plant with one hand, I grabbed Jansen's chubby hand with the other. We walked down the street and soon noticed a dozen or so cars in our new neighbor's driveway spilling out onto the street. As we reached the door, I dropped Jansen's hand. "Go ahead. Knock," I said, pushing my brother towards the door. Everyone loved Jansen, mostly because of how sweet and gentle he was. With his sandy brown hair and thick, dark eyebrows, had shed his peach fuzz and was starting to look like a proper little man. Personally, I was just happy he was wearing clothes. Jansen spent every single minute he was home either buck naked or wearing his Spider Man tidy whities. Jensen knocked and I heard a woman's voice answer. "Who is it?" I took over. "It's your neighbors from up the street." The door opened and a petite, pregnant woman with a perfect button nose and wide, heavily lidded eyes opened the door. I gasped. Wearing a stylish sweatshirt and chunky boots, she was a million times more exotic than anyone I'd met in Rockland County. Her dark hair and pouty lips made her seem otherworldly. Worldly. As a matter of fact, she looked exactly like a beautiful elf. "Hello," she said, said cheerily in an accent I couldn't place. "It's so nice to meet you. What is your name?" I smiled and extended the plant towards her. My name is Hayden Panettiere. I pointed to Jansen. And this is my little brother Jansen. We live up the street, and my parents wanted me to bring you this plant as a housewarming gift. The elf lady smiled and took the plant from my hands. Well, nice to meet you, Hayden and Jansen. There was that unfamiliar accent again. My name is Bajork. Bajork? Even though I was in the city almost daily, I was pretty sheltered, especially when it came to avant garde Icelandic pop stars slash artists slash actors. But I watched the Oscars and I remembered, is that how you say the name? Bjork? Bjork? She, she was a woman who wore a feathered swan dress on Oscar night with the swan's long neck wrapped around her body and extending down her chest. This woman was bold, exotic, and art in its purest form. Most famous New York and Hollywood people I'd met had expensive clothes, gleaming white teeth, and an air of authority. But Bjork was a celebrity on a vastly different level. She was Iceland meets Saturn meets Middle Earth. Come on in. Seeming perfectly normal and not at all like a mythical being. We're having a party. My son is around here somewhere if you want to meet him. He's not much older than you. Jansen and I looked inside and I pulled him in with me. I didn't care if this party was extraterrestrial. I liked people and I liked parties even more. Most of the people inside were about my parents' age, but they were about as different from my parents as you could get. When mom got dressed up to go out, she put on her long mink coat and changed her lipstick color. Right in front of me stood a woman wearing one long dangling earring that was shaped like a hand. Dad's idea of daring was wearing a suit without a tie, but next to hand earring was a man whose face sported half of a beard. I looked down at Jansen and he stared up at me. His eyes were bugging out of his head. My overprotective impulses kicked in and I decided it was time to take him home. We better get back, I said, wondering what her last name was because Miss Bjork didn't sound right. Mom's going to be worried we didn't come home. She smiled sweetly. Should I call her? Because you're welcome to stay, and your mom can come too. No, 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 I protested, even though a big part of me wanted to stay, if only to find out what was up with that guy's half beard. But it was so nice to meet you. You are very welcome, she answered. I hope you come back. I smiled and grabbed Jansen's hand. My little brother had been dead silent the entire time, but then he finally opened his mouth as we walked out the door. Welcome to Smeaton's Landing, he yelled. I hope you like your plant. So good. She told him the kids are in the basement while raising her temp and couldn't speak after people got there. This makes me sad. Hmm. Yeah, Hayden's father is still alive. Hey Shay. Happy would have thrown me off. I know. Oh, I'm sad. Her mom is mean. She's a momager. She really is. Anyone remember the baby powder perfume in the little pink bottle with the round top? No. Please, another. Oh, that was earlier. I don't know what a half beard is. Let's do another one, yeah? Hey, Ghost of a Siren. Let's do chapter 7, and this will be the last one for today. And then I want to move on to Lindsay Clancy in a different live. But we're gonna continue this tomorrow for sure. Um, I just want to finish it all. I'm not gonna cheat though. I don't what is a half beard? Oh, it's actually like a thing. Oh, it's like when you literally have half of a beard. It's it says a half beard is an asymmetrical why can't I say that? Asymmetrical facial hairstyle where one side of the face is kept fully grown and the other side is shaved completely clean. Why do people do this? I'm confused. No, here, let me show you guys a picture of what this looks like. This is just some random person on Google, okay? Don't come for me. I don't get it. Here, let me share. What's the point of this? Do you see this? Like, what the helly? So it's like literally half a beard. I've never seen a man do that in my life. But I guess if it's a thing, maybe I don't know. I'll ask my dad tomorrow if he wants to do a half beard. He's gonna look at me like, excuse me? Because he don't even have one. But who would do that? I don't know. Is that like it sounds like something you do to show how a skin product works. Okay, weird. Okay, let me take a drink of my H2O. Please hydrate. I want to have some buzz balls, but let's finish our schooling for the day, okay? Our reading book. We're reading a book together. I love it. Do you guys like reading books together? Because I think we should do it more often. That's not normal. It's not. Ask your mans if he wants to do a half beard. I don't know. I don't know about it. My dad don't got a beard like that. But I'll show him tomorrow. Please, no. Yo, my man said no. Okay, let's move on. Um, let me fix my throat 1 second. Don't ask. Okay, let's continue. Ready? Last chapter for the day. We got through 7. I was only supposed to do 5. I'm gonna clip it too. You're gonna scare your father. He's gonna ask if I'm drunk, is what he's gonna do. He's gonna be like, why are you asking me all these weird questions? Okay. I have never seen anyone rocking this. I guess we've been missing out. Guess we've been missing out, Nene. Guess we're not as hip as I thought, which is fine. Don't know. Okay, let's continue. Chapter 7 of the book. So let me start over. We're in part 1, chapter 7, titled Girls. Oh, every time mom and I went to the mall to look for school clothes for an outfit or an audition, I headed straight to the boys section. Jeans, t-shirts, and baseball caps were my style, and I bristled at dresses, tights, or fancy shoes. Mom never went with it, and without fail, we left with bags exploding with pink. Mom then laid out my clothes every night, and I dutifully put them on the next morning. I did this until around middle school when I broke down and told mom that while I valued her help, I really could dress myself. Before auditions, mom insisted that dressing the part would get me the part. And if I leaned more into my feminine side, I'd get the part instead of all the other girls. She was mostly right. I worked in an industry that styled my hair with hot rollers, costumed me in dresses, and never failed to cast me as a sweet, spunky little lady. Deep down, I knew that's not who I wanted to be. I wasn't the stereotypical girl child my mom laid out on the bed every night. If I wanted to dress in boys' clothes, what was wrong with that? I also had another secret. While I didn't want to act or dress like a girl, I sure as heck wanted to spend a lot of time with them and not just as friends. I can't remember when the feelings started, but I think it must have been around kindergarten. While my friends developed crushes on boys and spent hours at lunch and recessing, obsessing over what boy had noticed them, I was oblivious. Aside from the 9-year-old Chex actor who'd cost me a job and the cute Kodak boy who sent me my nervous system into overdrive, girls were much more my speed. There was nothing soft and approachable about them. There was something soft and approachable about them. Girls were what I'd now call sensual, but at the time, I couldn't put a name to it. Girls made sense to me, and I related to that energy they radiated. Their hands were smooth, their hair smelled like herbal essence. I liked how delicate their cheekbones and lips were. Girls made me feel warm and welcome, and also a little bit turned on. The first time I experimented with a girl, I was about 8 or 9. I had a friend over, and as we played pretend and talked about our favorite shows and books, I decided to tell her my secret. I wasn't all that embarrassed. My feelings about girls felt natural, and I was curious if she felt the same. This was also the late 1990s, a time when same sex relationships had begun to move from the fringes and the forbidden into an issue you saw on television. Buffy's best friend, Willow, had come out as bisexual, and Will and Grace had just premiered on NBC. Dawson's Creek was about to show a gay kiss on television. I hadn't quite observed any of this cultural shift, but it was out there, and I, perhaps since my feelings weren't taboo. Besides, I didn't assign myself to any category. I was just Hayden, and I thought girls were great. Well, that's okay, my friend said after I told her. Then her eyes lit up. Do you want to? Her gaze moved down towards her pants, and while I wasn't exactly sure where she was going, I figured it was harmless. We could play a little game of trust. Tale as old as time. Kids experiment, and they always have. My friend scooted towards me and motioned for me to put my hand on her belly. I hesitated. Then I placed it right above her jeans. I took a deep breath, then scooted it lower, then lower. That tickles, my friend squealed. I looked at her to make sure she was okay, and she nodded. I wiggled my fingers and slid my hand right down towards her underwear. I couldn't really tell what my hand landed on, but none of it felt like a big deal. What made up her body was exactly what made up mine. But at that same time, I sensed that I'd unlocked some mystery. I discovered a girl's body and it was perfectly natural. Just then, I heard a noise. I looked up and I saw the doorknob turn. Hayden, are you in here? A voice called out. It was Dad. Oh my God, it was Dad. My friend jerked to the side and scooted back away from the door, but as she moved, I got dragged along with her. My arm was stuck in her jeans, trapped under the waistband. I pulled as hard as I could to get my hand out, but between the squirming and the vice grip of her pants, I was hopelessly stuck. Dad, don't come in, I screamed. Do not come in. It was too late. My eyes darted to the door, and there was Dad frozen in shock. Heat flooded my face, and I stared at him, then at my friend, then towards my poor trapped hand, then back to Dad, who started to tiptoe backward out of the room. I am so sorry, Dad whispered, his shock turning into laughter. So sorry. I'm getting out of here now. The door closed quickly, and just like that, Dad was gone. As far as I know, Dad never told Mom the ridiculous scene he walked into. Mom didn't discriminate against anyone, but adding this to my refusal to act feminine would shake her up too much. I didn't want anything to disturb the world she'd helped build and cultivate for me. In fact, I didn't want anything to disturb my parents, period. I've also never told the public I've been with women. And I say been with women because I haven't fallen in love or had anything beyond sexual relationships with any, though I suppose that could happen someday. But I have been attracted to women just as long as I have been attracted to men. At a certain point in my career, actors begin sharing their sexual exploits and preferences far more publicly than they had in the past, and I didn't want people to think I was hitching my wagon to a fad. Although because sexual feelings are fluid and they have always been, I know it wasn't a trend at all. I also think it's healthy and cathartic for stars to be honest with themselves and the public. And I don't look down on anyone who's been open about who they are or who they sleep with. In fact, I celebrate it. If you want to live your truth out loud, do it. It's just never been my time to discuss this until now, when I have the confidence and trust in who I am. Years ago, I worried about sharing something that would invite harsh judgment or unwanted opinions. But now I just need to live my truth. This is me. I can't be transparent about life if I'm not honest about my experiences. So I hope my revelation and some of the stories I'll tell in this book make a difference to someone out there. For the sake of your mental health, your relationships with others, and your path forward in life, it's so important to be comfortable with who you are, no matter who you're attracted to or where your hands end up. So good. I can't even get over it. I loved Remember the Titans. She was compelling in that movie. If her mom would have let her develop Shake My Head, I feel, and for Hayden's bringing up by her mom. I loved Remember. I guess so, Melly. Remember the Titans is bomb. Melly, he's gonna pull Reddington. You smoke the weed? How many chapters in the book? This is such a great book, right? Hi, beautiful Roxanne. Could you imagine constantly being around such attractive people seems only natural? My heart breaks. Is that weird as we're reading this book? I'm like, oh man, this is worse. Um, Let me look up how many chapters. I don't want to close out of the book because it's an ebook and it's been a pain in the ass. There's 43 chapters and we're on chapter 8. So we got a while to go. Thanks for reading with us. Don't leave us this way. Do you guys want me to do another one? We can continue. We can read number 8. I'm going to clip these into individual chapters anyways, so people who want to re-listen to them or whatever can. Okay, we'll do one more. I'm hooked. Hooked. Okay, let's share the screen. I got my hard copy. I'm excited to read it. I know, I got one too. I got the ebook and the hard copy because I think it's worth it. I think it's so worth it. Yes, okay. Fine. We'll we'll read 8. I don't want it to end either. It's really good. We're here for it. Yeah, I'm gonna put it on the other platforms too, so people can listen to it. If you're up for it, yeah, we can. They're short chapters, anyways. They're really short. I'm reading a different book that had the chapters are like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages. I feel the same, Ellie. It's so sad. I'm beating for a fundraiser. Let's go all night. Yeah, we can read another chapter in this book and then I want to catch up on Lindsay Clancy. I have 2 Lindsay Clancy lives. Oh, peep my nails. Do you love nail model? Cute. I had pink, so I wanted something different. We won't twist your hand or anything. No, you don't have to twist my hand. I want to read it. That's why I decided to do it. Because I figured I could read it by myself or I could come on here and read it with you guys. So I was like, I'm sure y'all would like to hear it. Thanks. Okay. Let's start. Clear your throat and drink some water tea. I know, that's why I was like, okay. Chapter 8, 7 freckles and 5 band-aids. I don't think mom or I really knew what to expect when I landed the role of Princess Dot in A Bug's Life, Pixar's second film after Toy Story. We thought it would be a different kind of challenge than I was used to, but we certainly didn't believe it would be a 2-year odyssey that would stretch my acting chops into brand new directions. When I was cast, I was 7. By the time A Bug's Life hit the theaters, I was 9. One thing became clear to me the minute I stepped into Pixar's recording studio. I was Princess Dot. I had 7 freckles on my nose, and she did too. Princess Dot was spunky, and spunky was my trademark. This was all by design. Dot might have been animated, but I was the person who'd show her all the moves. First, the animators matched Dot's vocalization to the way my mouth shifted and changed. Then, the reverse happened. During the parts when Dot's mouth didn't quite fit the dialogue, I had to go back and re record, molding my words with her mouth's movements. It was like playing the mirror game with an animated insect. Almost immediately, I discovered how difficult and tedious voice work could be. While I was used to filming an entire scene, often over the course of many takes, I recorded Dot's dialogue line by line, always doing multiple takes of each line. In tone and pitch, each line had to be consistent. I did this slowly and methodically over the course of many months. With Dot, I also had to create a range of expressions using only my voice. No facial expressions to relay fear or anticipation, and no movements to show excitement or boredom. Just the exaggerated sounds of a child who learned how to read the year before. My voice came alive in ways I didn't dream it could, even with the most basic lines, but I still had to will I still but I had to will that to happen. I wasn't simply reading a script. I was voice acting, and it was arguably the hardest work I've ever done. Standing behind a mic in a cold, quiet recording studio, I was keenly aware that I'd be acting all alone. In every commercial and on both soap operas, I'd been able to play off my fellow actors and find my character or make a line hit exactly the way it was intended to. Dot was by herself, searching in the dark as she tried to nail all the right notes. The directors were nothing but kind to me, but every day I felt like I was trying to show them what I was capable of, proving myself with every enunciation, nuance, exclamation, and stressed syllable. Words mattered in a way they'd never mattered before. Words were pretty much all I had in that chilly, silent room. There's such beauty in voice work, but that's not for the faint of heart. Think about it. If you took the dialogue out of a live action film and put it into an animated film, that movie would be unbelievably dull. Voice actors make a film come alive with only one part of their bodies, and you better hope that body part doesn't change over the 2 years it takes you to record a script. I was 7, so even though I had a few years before full blown puberty, I still had to make my pitch higher towards the end of the recording. But I loved Dot, and voicing her made me dive right into my creativity and imagination. As Princess Dot, I could be curious, silly, noisy, and over the top. Don't get me wrong, voice work was hard, but it was also a much needed exercise in keeping me on my toes and stretching me to dig for emotion. When we wrapped up the project, someone in the crew approached me with a present. Is this for me? I asked. It sure is, he said. I tore apart the wrapping paper and ripped open the box. When I looked down to see whatever was inside, I started to laugh. It's Dot, I yelled. There she is. The crew had given me the original handmade clay model of Dot. From that day on, I vowed never to kill a bug again. Not long after A Bug's Life premiered, my agent at the time gave mom a call. I've got something huge that's right up Hayden's alley. She is made for it. My agent was both wrong and right. Jerry Bruckheimer, yes, Jerry Bruckheimer, the Top Gun super producer, had plans to make a film called Remember the Titans about a newly integrated Virginia football team that recruits a black head coach to replace the long-standing white coach. It was set in 1971 when racism was boiling over in the newly desegregated South. Based on a true story, Denzel Washington had been cast as the black coach. Herman Boone, while Will Patton played Bill Yost, the white coach who was about to lose his job. Bill's daughter was a feisty tomboy named Cheryl. She was a spiritual, comical center of the film who helped bridge the town and team's racial tensions through humor, heart, and determination. While the true drama of the film centered on dismantling systemic racism, Cheryl's worldview was simple. She believed football was one of the society's greatest levelers. She didn't understand or subscribe to racist beliefs. She just saw a game that she and everyone else rallied around. As far as she was concerned, let the best team win, whatever their players look like. My then agent set out to get me an audition, and it didn't go well. She's not right for the film, the casting director said to her. I've seen her tapes, and she's a John Benet Ramsey type. John Benet's tragic death had happened about 4 years before, yet she was still the poster child for child beauty queens. She even looks like John Benet with that curly hair, she continued. Regardless, I've seen Hayden act, and she's no tomboy. They didn't know me, and my agent wasn't having it. She called the casting director again and again, determined to get me that audition. Finally, she wore her down. The casting director said yes. Mom booked us a flight to LA, and I began reading the script. 2 days before our trip, I headed to our swim club because school was out and so was the sun. Mom brought along what she considered her new magic bullet in the war we waged with my blonde hair's dark roots, Sunnin. Mom had been spraying Jansen's hair, which, added to the awful mullet she liked him to have, made him look like he belonged in a 1980s boy band. But not me. Sunnin held the power to bleach my roots in no time flat. We just had to be prepared for them to be a slightly different shade than the rest of my hair. With my hair smelling like lemons, chlorine, and dirty dishwater, I let my head bake in the sun for a recommended half an hour. Then I dashed off to the water slide. I loved that water slide. I climbed up the ladder, sat down, and grabbed the slide sides to rocket my body 12 feet down to the cold water. Splash. I closed my eyes tight, telling myself that with just a little bit of effort, I could swim to the bottom. I certainly had enough air in my lungs. I flipped over, kicked, and kicked again. My ears started to ache as my chest became tight. Suddenly, I felt my knuckles scrape against the hard, grainy concrete at the bottom. The flesh on my fingers ripped open, and I shot back up, wincing in pain. Mom, Mom, I yelled when I got to the surface. I'm bleeding. The first thing I thought of was that they'd probably have to clear the pool because of all the blood. My second thought was about Remember the Titans audition. How was I supposed to audition for a major Hollywood picture with bloody, shredded knuckles? This was a tragedy, a cataclysmic tragedy. What happened? Mom asked, jogging towards me. I started sobbing. I hit the bottom. It hurts, and I have an audition, a big one. What have I done? I climbed out of the pool, and Mom looked me up and down. Clearly, her mama bear instincts had kicked in because she wrapped a towel around me and pulled me close. Look, honey, she said, it's not that bad. Nothing a few band-aids can't fix. As for the audition, I think I have a plan. If this involves super glue, I'm out, I said to myself. An hour later, my bandaged fingers and I walked into Sears with Mom and headed straight for the children's clothing section. Unlike previous trips, we made a beeline for the boys' area, where Mom handed me some boys' jeans and a baggy sweatshirt. Here, that will fit, Mom said, holding the sweatshirt up to me. They want tomboy, we'll give them tomboy. Who's not afraid to get a little bloody? You dress the part, you get the part. 2 days later, I boarded a plane to Los Angeles with my hair in braids, a brand new haul of boys' clothes, and 5 band-aids wrapped around my fingers. We even put a little gauze under them to make my injuries look worse. That afternoon, I walked into the casting room wearing an outfit that made me feel, at long last, like me. I was Hayden, the tomboy, and when I opened my I was Hayden the tomboy, and when I opened my mouth, I slipped into the character of Cheryl. My hands shook less than normal, and my voice barely cracked. Gazing out towards the director, I had the confidence to channel a feisty, football-loving preteen caught between the racism of her town and the fearlessness of a coach who wanted to break that down. I didn't freeze up. I turned it on and let it loose. Mom later claimed that the casting director threw open the door after my audition, walked into the waiting room, and fell to her knees. I am so sorry. Get Hayden's agent on the phone and tell her what a fool I was to question her. Hayden Panettiere has the role. I remember none of this, but Mom, who leans into the drama, swears it's true. I was about to take on the biggest role of my life, and it was about to change everything. Okay. So we're on what chapter did I say? We're on chapter 9. Remember the Titans, and I am gonna leave y'all there with on this one. Yeah, don't hate, appreciate. Hit the like button. Thanks for being here. I'm trying not to make my life super long because I can do lives all day long. So I'm trying to reduce the timing. This is so good. I know I'm gonna clip them and put them on X and my TikTok and on here so people can re-listen to. Everybody needs to read this book. This book is a life story. It's so good. I know we're already hooked and we're 9 chapters in and we haven't even got to the mom part, the momager, the rest of it, the rugs, the addiction, the pregnancy, the postpartum, the domestic violence. Like we still have to cover all of that in this book. It is so good. Yes, it is. So please make sure you hit the like button. We have Lindsay Clancy. I'm gonna eat some food and then I'll come back with Lindsay Clancy. Melly, this is your best reading ever. Is it? Okay, good. After a while, I start slurring my words just because I'm a very fast reader. Really? I got into this? What do you mean, really, you got into this? You better be here, Linto. And if you're late tomorrow, you're going to be in trouble. The young lady that just passed away. Yeah. I've been listening for the past 30 minutes and it's interesting, but who are we reading about? Ah, Linto's been listening. Okay, thank you, Linto. Thank you for having my back. Hater World Strong. Thank you, Melly. When is the next part? Tomorrow. I want to do a full day tomorrow. I know I've been saying that all week, but I've been busy with other shit. I want to do Kenzie tomorrow. We're gonna do members only, and I have a Lindsay Clancy case. I want to like review everything in Lindsay Clancy. Am I sick in the head? Yes, I am sick in the head. I am absolutely. I'm obsessed with true crime, and now that that the defense has rested, I want to go over all of it again. So I have notes and stuff, and the lawsuits. I want to review that. And let me know in the comments in the chat if y'all are down for Kenzie reading again. I'm itching for it. I am. Text messages. I think it would be fun to read them now that I have a different perspective on things. Stir up the pot a little bit, yeah? Why not? People gonna talk shit anyways. Anyways. Thank you for being here. I love the red open heart. Oh, my emojis. Yeah, I'm working on new ones too. We should have new emotes this weekend for the members. And I'm going to do a couple, hopefully 2 members only before Monday. And so get into it because we like to drink there, talk a lot of shit, cover a lot of true crime. Oh, LC tonight. Yes. Lindsay Clancy tonight. How do you find the time? I'm obsessed with true crime. That's how I find the time. When you really love something, you'll make the time for it. I'm a pot stirrer now. I don't care. I need to be a member. If we do a members only tomorrow night, which I'm planning on it, I'll gift usually during the day if you are here for the lives. So hopefully that's you, Meow Mix, who wins one of them. Anyways, RIP Hayden. Beautiful book. I'm obsessed. I love it. I don't regret buying it and reading it on here on live. I'm going to clip all of it for those of you who want shorter clips. And I will see you guys on the next live. Thank you for being here. And please don't forget to drop a like. Toodles.